All right, so I got the CB500 behind me, and one of the things I want to do before I put it away in the garage, I'm not planning on working in this build until the winter basically, or at least until my other projects are finished or well on the way. But I'd like to get it so it's in drivable condition so I can just easily move it back and forth before I put this thing away. So to do that, it runs, we know it runs, now we just need it to drive. So the main problem there at the moment is that we have that bent fork on the front, and my dad claims that he can straighten that fork, or at least has a good idea on how to straighten the fork. We'll see if we can actually do it. So my first step on this is to take the fork off the bike and see if we can actually straighten it out. Now we're going to use a hydraulic press, so the stanchion is what is bent on this fork. Let's go look at it. All right, so basically on this bike, the stanchion is this silver chrome part here of the shock, and then the lower part here is called the lower portion or lower shock. This part here, it looks like it's bent right about there, and so we need to take this guy off of here so that we can see if we can put it in the press and save ourselves $80, because that's basically the difference between I can buy a brand new one of these for $80 and we can rebuild the shock, or if we can straighten it, saves ourselves $80. Now to do that means jacking up the bike. So that means I've got my little hoist here. I'm gonna use this lifting strap, wrap this around the bike, hook onto my hoist, and then we'll hoist up the whole front end of the bike. Next, I need to remove the brake caliper off of the brake rotor so that the wheel will be free of the brake system. So first I'm going to go ahead and clean this dirt out of here. And then, unbelievable to me, we have a mega Allen wrench for this. But first, that bolt there, the pinch bolt. Go ahead and loosen that up, and then a mega Allen wrench. There it is, look at that little wheel. All right, and then before we can remove the fork, we've got to remove what is left of this fender. This guy here, it was all smashed up in there. And then, before we can do that, we've got to remove this little reflector thing, which is holding on the hydraulic hose for the brake. So, got to remove that guy, and then the fender. All right, now that the front wheel is off, it's a matter of undoing a couple clamps. We've got that clamp right there in the center on the stanchion, this guy, and then up top here, we've also got this clamp right there. All right, it's out. You can tell that is bent. Doesn't have any kinks in it, but it's definitely bent. Our next step basically is to disassemble this guy. There's an Allen head bolt down in the bottom here. This is where the axle went through, and so right underneath that there is an Allen head bolt in there. So there's that Allen head bolt down in there. I take my little wrench, get down in there. I should. Hold on. All right, so next I want to remove this top cap here and drain out the oil. So I'm gonna get an oil drain pan, stick that guy underneath there. And I'm afraid because of the spring pressure, this thing's just gonna go shooting once it gets loose. So I'm gonna try and prevent that as best I can. There's all of our oil. Nice new looking oil. And it smells like ATF. Wow, that's interesting. All right, I'm now going to try to neatly disassemble this and keep everything in order. So here is our preload spacer, and it's plastic on this guy. Then we've got a spring, which is progressive. Look at that. And this is the tightly coiled part is at the bottom. So that looks like all there is in the top part there. So go ahead and take the dust cap off of here. All right, there's the dust cap off. And then inside here we've got, you can see that little ridge here coming down. That's part of the spring clip. And so we've got to get in there and undo that, which you should be able to do with this pair of pliers, or with this little screwdriver. Pull that guy out, like so. Then we've got the actual oil seal is next, and I believe should just be able to pop that off. There's a little damper rod. I'll go ahead and take these off. I'm going to zip tie them together so I know how they go. Alright, so this is our setup right here. We've got a hydraulic press, 20-ton hydraulic press. Our stanchion in here. We've got it set up in a little V clamp on the bottom. There's a V here that it sits in, and then there's a V down there that it's sitting in. And in the middle, we've got a little diaper thing in between to try and hopefully not scratch things and to distribute some of the pressure a little bit, because we're pressing down on this on one single point, which is not ideal. Ideally we'd have another V of some kind to distribute the weight a little bit more around the pipe. And then we've got a gauge here to try and gauge how much we're moving the pipe. We've been cranking on it for a little bit now, and it has gotten straighter, but it's definitely not straight. Luckily we have yet to really kink the pipe, so it might actually be usable. We'll see. Alright, it's been a couple days now, and I am excited to be bringing you some new parts. So we've got new parts for the suspension here that we're working on. Basically, we've got a stanchion pipe. The old one was bent. We ordered a new one, and it should be in this box. And I ordered stuff straight from Honda, and I'll explain why. Brand new OEM parts. So we've also got some oil seals for the fork. That's always smart to do. And then we've got our new stanchion. So it even comes with a bushing on the end here, a new bushing, which I am super excited about that. My next step is to clean all this stuff, and then we'll get out some ATF. I'm going to use ATF on this. I wasn't sure about that, because I read about it and I was like, oh man, maybe this, that, whatever. I'm not so sure about using it until I took this one apart, and it smells exactly like ATF. The factory fluid smells like ATF. So I'm much more comfortable using it now. So let's do that. So we're going to clean up all these little parts, spray them off. I'm going to use some brake cleaner to clean these guys off. Alright, so let the reassembly begin. We're going to start with this guy down here. Damper rod guy here. Slide that in. And then on the bottom we've got this little cone guy, this bottom out cone. Take our lower part here. Then we've got our little screw here, our bolt that goes in the bottom. There's also a crush washer that is still on the bottom of here, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on here because there was... Try and stick this guy back on here. Alright, I got my Allen wrench at the ready. Throw him on here. Get him to work. Seems to have worked here. This is locked in here now, so I must have connected something. Alright, so next I've got my bushing to go back in here, and then there's this backup ring, it's called, according to the parts manual, and that's how those go in. And then after that we've got our oil seal. lube this guy up. Over the little stanchion here, slide it down. And then I've got a piece of PVC pipe here. This is a, oh man, I don't even know what it is. So this is an 1¼ inch coupling. So it's made to couple 2 1¼ inch pipes together, and this fits perfectly. I had to file out the little center part in here so that it will slide all the way through, but the inside diameter here is perfect for this stanchion. So I've got my bushing down in there. I'm going to slide my coupling over my stanchion, and so that slides down right over top of the bushing, and it allows me to push that down. And you should be able to get the bushing to go and seat all the way down so that it is flat with the lower part of the fork here. It takes a good amount of effort and a good amount of force. Our next step is what's called a backup ring according to the parts manual. This guy goes on here. Then we've got our new oil seal goes on, which is this guy here with the that little spring ring that holds everything tight. And we're gonna go ahead and lube this oil seal up real good. I don't want to give it any reason not to cooperate. Be a good little oil seal. Alright, so then I got my oil seal on here. Slide this guy down into its new little home. Push it down further with my little pusher. Oh yes! Alright, that's what we want. That is what we want. That seal is set down in there. The groove, if you can see the groove on the side of the lower fork, this black part, there's a groove on the side of it. On the inside, that's where the little circlip thing goes. And once we've got the seal down far enough that that little groove is apparent, that is the thumbs up. That's where we want to be. So our next step is to throw a little circlip, spring clip thing on there. Get that down in there. And push it the rest of the way in. Oh, snappy snap. All right, so that's down in that groove. Oh, it's a good day. All right, so next we've got our dust cap, dust seal guy here. This guy can go on. Oh man, this is fantastic. What a great day. And then this guy goes on like so, without too much issue. It slides all the way down, and then you just sort of push it in till it seats all the way. All right, our next step is to throw the spring in here, and you can see this spring is more tightly wound on one end than on the other. And the more tightly wound end, that one goes in the bottom of the fork. So it goes in this way. And then our little spacer thing goes in up here after that guy. I'm gonna extend the fork up like that so that I can then get the little cap on the top. All right, and that should supply some pressure to the bottom here so we can now torque this guy. All right, so our next step is to put fluid back in here. And according to the service manual, it is 480 milliliters of fork oil that go into these forks, And so that's what we need for this guy. I am, at least at the moment, I'm going to substitute ATF for fork oil. Now there's there's a lot of discussion about this on the internet about ATF versus fork oil. And I don't have the definitive answer, but I do know that they used to use ATF all the time for fork fluid because the service manual for my Goldwing, my 1982 Goldwing, calls for ATF. So you can use it. The weight on it is debatable. Some people say it's 5 weight, some people say it's 7.5, some people say it's 10 weight equivalent. That's what the ATF is weight-wise. And they're probably all correct. It probably varies, you know. And so we're gonna throw it in here, and just for now, I just wanna be able to ride this thing around the yard. So this should work for now. So 480 milliliters, we're gonna measure that out and throw it in here, and then we're gonna throw our springs in and be happy. So I've got a little cup, and it's got milliliters on it, and so I'm gonna measure out 480 milliliters. This is not a good spout on this thing. It doesn't pour good at all. Alright, and then we should be able to stick in our spacer. I want to do a little bubble. Try and let the air out a little bit. Alright, put a cap on. Yep, we got it. Oh yeah, we got a 24mm wrench. Alright, so here's our bike, which has been waiting patiently for like a week to get the fork back. So, let's go ahead, throw this guy back on here. Alright, I do think that this lower triple clamp might be bent, which is problematic. I'm hoping I don't have to address it right now. I can hold off on that. You can see these are definitely at different angles. We're looking straight across this triple clamp on the bottom. That's about straight across on that. And look at this. Look at the forks. They're completely off. This one on the left is, I think the triple clamp right here is just twisted. All right, now my curiosity just got the better of me. I've got to figure out what's going on with these triple trees. So I'm gonna take off this headlamp so I can get a better look at things that's going on right here. Alright, so bad luck, our triple trees are bent. The one on the bottom is definitely bent. The one on the top, I think, might slightly be bent, and so I'm going to replace it just because I don't want to get to the point where I've replaced everything else, and then I get to here and I go, oh crap, and then I have to wait or order another part and blah blah blah. So I'm going to take this all apart, and before I order stuff, I'm going to make sure the bearings on this thing are good and reusable. Otherwise, I might as well order those while I'm at it. So I take the handlebars off here. All right, so and with the clang, the lower triple is out. Let's take a look at this thing on the bench. And so the question at this point really is it bent? And the answer to that is yes. It is definitely bent. We knew that was bent. And so the real question is the top triple bent? That's our next question. We need to figure that out. I also wanted to check the bearings. When I order a new one of these from the Honda dealer, it will come with this lower bearing. So I'm really concerned about the upper bearing. And so here is the upper bearing. It doesn't look damaged or anything. It looks perfectly fine. Yeah, all the ball bearings are in place. Nothing seems bent. All right, so this guy is definitely bent. And I can tell that by sighting it. Because, yeah, I don't know if I can show you on camera, if it will show up or not. If we try and sight that one so you can see the back edge of it. And you tilt it just so that just disappears. Can you still see the back edge on the other one? Yeah, you can. You got to tilt it just a little bit more for that one to disappear. All right, so while I'm out here and having a good time, I thought I would take these bolts out of the ignition. These guys down here, there's one there and there's one on the other side. These are the ones that are stripped off. When I first tried to take this off, I was like, oh, it's loose, but no, actually my socket was just spinning because it looks like it's an Allen head bolt, and it may have been, but it also, looking at it closer, I've discovered that it's stripped out from the factory. They stripped that thread, or they stripped the head out so that you can't take it off, which is pretty shitty, I think, but it's probably an anti-theft device or some sort of thing like that. But if you're in my situation and you need to replace this top clamp here, then you've got to remove the ignition switch to do that, and it's a real pain. My solution, I've got some like stripped bolt removers here. So these guys are pretty sweet. I've used these before and I like them. And this fits in to the stripped out part of the Allen head. I was able to get this one out on this side. And luckily, I was smart enough to realize that, hey, if the factory went to such lengths to strip the heads out on these, they probably also put some serious thread locker on there. So my solution is to heat this thing up first, because there's types of thread locker that if you heat it up, you can get it off. If you don't heat it up, you'll break stuff. So luckily, I was able to heat this up. And then get in here. And then it comes off. If you don't heat it up, it doesn't budge. So I'm pretty proud of myself of having come up with a neat and effective solution. My ignition is out. Well, it's an exciting day in Hooptieville. We finally got the box we've been waiting on. Look at this handlebar. That was like $35 for a stock handlebar. I don't have to mess with cable lengths and all that stuff. Done. And here we got another stanchion for the front fork. And here is the bottom triple on the triple tree, the bottom clamp. And then this should be the upper one. There it is. Look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. All right, so we got everything we need. All right, I've got my old fork here. I'm gonna go ahead and replace this chrome stanchion part here, and then we'll be back. All right, so we got our parts in, and now I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble the front end of this bike. However, I don't have the service manual yet, so I don't know what the torque specs are for anything, basically. So I'm gonna be skipping that part. I'm not gonna be riding it on the road or doing anything crazy with it. I'll tighten them down. I'll do a little bit of torquing on it, but I'm not gonna tighten it. I'm not gonna torque it down until I get the service manual. So for right now, it's just assembly, and then final assembly is the actual torquing. We'll do that later. All right, so we've got our newly rebuilt forks. These two, we put new stanchions, this top chromey part here, as well as new gaskets and oil seals on here, and new fluid, etc. I've got my stem and lower clamp here. This comes with a new bearing on the bottom, and this is all new factory stuff. And we've got our new top clamp here as well. This is also factory stuff, brand new. It's nice light aluminum. I need to transfer over pieces from the old one onto this one, and I'm going to do that for this as well as for the lower clamp as well. So let's start with the lower clamp, this guy. All I've got are these two bolts here for the clampy part. So I'm going to take those off, transfer them over. Move these guys over to the new one. Alright, that guy's all set. And do the same with this guy here. So on this one we've got these clampy bolts as well on the sides. Then we've got our ignition right here. Take this guy off. We've also got a little ignition top plate right here. This guy needs to come off as well. Let's see how difficult this will be. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and use the impact screwdriver on these guys. It's just a Phillips head on here, but I'm really afraid of stripping this out. Let's see. That'll get us there. That one. Alright, there's that one. Alright, so that guy's off. You can see there's a little red thread locker on there. Go ahead and install it on the new one. I'm going to use some blue thread locker on this one, which should make it easier to remove. Ta-da! Alright, now we'll do the ignition switch itself. All right, and the only thing left on here are these bolts on the bottom and the bolt for this clamp for the handlebars on top. I'll leave that there for now. We'll come back and get it later. Our newly rebuilt front end. Still need to put the handlebars on, but I'm gonna save that for a sunny or maybe a rainy day. I'll save that for a rainy day. And then you can look at the forks now compared to what they were before. Look at how straight they all line up. Oh yeah, that's nice. Very happy with how that turned out. And now we can roll it around again. All right, with the front end assembled, I just can't resist the temptation to put this thing together and take it for a ride around the yard. Temporarily, I'm going to take the old rear set thing and slap on this piece of angle iron, which just neatly happens to have a hole that is the perfect spacing to line up with this hole here. So I'm just going to bolt that guy on like that, and then it'll give me a place to put my foot. Little lock washer on there. It'll be just like that. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this thing down, and then, yeah, this should be pretty good. And then we'll go ahead and slap it back on here, and then see about riding it. All right, now we're gonna try something because I don't have a battery for this. I'm borrowing an old battery that does hold power. So we're gonna try hooking this battery up temporarily. All right, so plan like D is to zip tie these battery connections onto the battery because, well, I'm being lazy is the short answer. Could find some bolts that would hold this thing on, but I really just want to do this for a couple minutes. And I don't want to take time, go and find the appropriate bolts that fit and all that. So, all right, that should hold the connections on. Now I need something to, can't really put the seat on though now. So I might just not be using a seat. Maybe I'll sit in the back. Maybe I'll sit where the passenger is.